All right, welcome to our board meeting this evening. This is a regular meeting of the Boulder Valley Board of Education for Tuesday, October 8th, 2019. Laura, would you please call the roll?
Benford. Fuqua.
Here.
Garcia.
Here.
Gebhardt.
Here.
Marquis.
Here.
Myers.
Here.
Sargent is not present. Board members, please remember to use your button when speaking into your microphone. Thank you.
Okay, will do. All right, please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and I'd like to remind you all that the mission of the Boulder Valley School District is to create challenging, meaningful, and engaging opportunities so that all children thrive and are prepared for successful, civically engaged lives. All right, so as always, we'll start out with our superintendent's report. Rob.
Thank you, Board President Marquis, members of the board. Excuse me. It has been a busy couple of weeks here in the district. As I've shared with you previously, I had the opportunity to start my school visits, and so last week was at Platt Middle School, was at Ryan Elementary School yesterday, and then this afternoon got a chance to spend the afternoon at the Mapleton Early Childhood Center. And so really great to get into our schools and to see the great things that are happening and have great conversations with our teachers. I've been talking a lot about our strategic plan, the future of our district, and then trying to customize presentations for each school so they can get an opportunity to ask questions that they might want to ask of me. So it's been a lot of fun. I'll have a lot of visits over the course of the next several months, and so I'll continue to keep you all updated on how those are going. Last Friday, I had an opportunity to, I was invited by the Colorado Association of Charter School Authorizers to come and present on our new charter application. As I've shared with you all, I thought it was a great conversation. We had authorizers from across the state who were very interested in some of the language that we included in our application that was an amendment from the model application that CACSA had put out in the previous year. Got really great feedback. I think a lot of folks will be taking our lead, especially around some of our language, and it's the CMO language, Charter Management Organizations. I think they call it EMP, Educational Management Partners, within Colorado. And so it was really a great opportunity to connect with some folks across the state that are thinking about charters, and it was great to see that our work was being highlighted. I had last night had the opportunity to meet with our Parity parents, for those of you who are unaware, Parity is a group here that works with our parents. This semester, they're working with parents from Crestview Elementary School, our Latino parents, and trying to encourage them on how to get involved in our school system, advocate for their kids, and sat with them for about an hour and a half, along with Richard. Last night was really great, really powerful. The information that I get from these sessions is not only powerful, but it's actionable. It's things that we bring back to our team and discuss and how we can continue to focus on equity within our district. And then this morning, I had a great opportunity to attend a field trip at Chautauqua. And Flatirons Elementary School was there at Chautauqua. Thank you, Shelley, for helping kind of walk me around. And what a beautiful facility. What a great opportunity for our kids. Got to learn about the history of Chautauqua. They sat in the auditorium and watched a silent film, which was really, really funny. It was incredible, so a great opportunity. And so we really appreciate Chautauqua partnering with us and felt like that was just a great way to start my morning. And that's all I have.
Okay, any questions for Rob, board members? Dr. Anderson? No? Okay, our next item. Sorry, we don't have any public participation, so we'll move on to the next item, which is board communication. So board members, anything you'd like to share? Richard? Kathy?
Yes, thank you very much. We did attend the Parity meeting last night, and it's great to see some very active parents, small but mighty group. And some of the issues that were being brought up last night have been issues that we've been dealing with in Boulder Valley School District for a long, long time. And I was glad that the superintendent, we had 2 area superintendents there, Dr. Messier and Dr. Robin. And yeah. And the principal was there from Crestview, which was wonderful because I think that really shows our parents the support that they get from our district. We also had a parent from Westminster there that was really giving us, or giving this district a lot of kudos to the fact that this is a district that really pays attention to parents. Which I thought was pretty interesting and pretty enlightening for me to hear that by and large our parents seem like they are being heard. And we did talk a lot about having the Latino parent voice present, and it's great, and I'm pleased to have heard the comments from the parents last night.
Other board members? Kathy?
First, I'd like to say thanks to the League of Women Voters and District Parent Council for sponsoring a forum, because I think it's important for our public to hear what the candidates have to say, even when we're unopposed. I think the questions were thoughtful, and I think it was helpful for people to be able to come or to watch it online. So I just want to say thanks to the effort that they put in, because it's a lot of work to put together the questions and get the publicity out and all of that. I want to say thanks to the I Have a Dream Foundation. I was able to go to their annual luncheon, and my favorite part of that luncheon is getting to sit with the dreamers and hearing their stories, and they're pretty amazing stories, and some of the obstacles that some of those young adults have overcome are pretty amazing. And I think the partnership that we have with I Have a Dream is a nice partnership, and so I like it was nice to be able to attend that on behalf of the district. And then I was able to go to our DAC meeting and listen to Rob talk to DAC about what we want to do for our new accountability system. And the energy in the room was great. Rob did a great job presenting kind of a new way to start thinking about accountability, so I really appreciated that. And I look forward to hearing back what the feedback is from all the different groups. So we divided it up in elementary, middle, high, because the accountability looks different at each level. And so hearing what the accountability systems and what parents are looking for at each one of those systems is personally just the kind of conversation I'm hoping we can start to have with our community, is what does a successful school look like, and how are we going to measure that, and where do we need to go, and what are our challenges. So I was really excited to be able to go to that, and thank you, Dr. Anderson, for taking the lead on that.
Okay. Sam?
Just a quick thank you to Principal Krista Kepler at Fireside Elementary, who hosted Rob and Kathy and I for a visit this morning. It was great to see how that successful neighborhood school is operating. We talked to teachers and support staff. We saw the ILC for students with autism, and heard about the way they approach planning, which I think has been very effective for them. So great neighborhood school. Nice to see it this morning.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. So our next item is an information item, 6.1, Family Partnerships Update.
Good evening. It's a real privilege to be able to share with you this evening some of the highlights from our work in family partnerships over the last year. And it's a fitting time, as October is the month of parent and family partnerships. And it's also exciting because with the reorganization, it's really an opportunity to make our work with families more systemic. And also, as you've heard about, elements are really woven throughout the strategic plan, from our strategic work on family partnerships to cultural responsiveness to the team that's working on community partnerships. So I think it's going to become more embedded throughout our system, which is really exciting.
Ari, hold on one second. We've got a display that they're working on. Board members, do you have this pulled up on your computers so he can proceed? Yeah. Give Randy 1 second.
I kind of
All
feel
right.
like a high school student that didn't want to give a presentation. It was like, first I'll make the technology not work and then spark the fire alarm.
Wow. You are
Not in the
good.
plans, though. So where I left off was really wanting to begin sharing brief roots. 2 years ago, in collaboration with colleagues at CU Boulder, we really devised a BVSD approach to family partnerships. We felt like we needed to have something with a greater social justice lens that looked at how are we really working with all of our families. And you can see our 4 pillars: relationships and trust, learning and well-being, decision-making and power, and reciprocal communication. And some of these really represent a shift. Reciprocal communication, for instance, a shift from how do we communicate with our families to actually how are we giving opportunities for them to communicate with us through more channels, and how are we giving them more voice and decision-making power. So these pillars grow out of the book Authentic Family Partnerships, and you can see at the bottom the foundational piece is intercultural understanding, really trying to shift from an approach of doing to families to really doing with families across the board. And as you can see in this graphic, one of our guiding questions has been, how can we select high-leverage family partnership practices that both deepen relationships and lead to stronger student outcomes? And I want to direct your eyes to the far right where you can see home visits, because that has become one of our key projects in family partnerships over the last year and a half. So 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to go to a short conference in Nevada, and the second day was a panel on home visits. And principals, teachers, parents, and students spoke powerfully about how home visits had really transformed their relationship as a community. And this was a school in Reno that had actually experienced a school shooting, and home visits was a core way that they healed as a community and really came back together. So I came back from that really inspired, realizing we've been doing this work in preschool and in special education, but it had not been done broadly K-12. So 2 summers ago, we began a cohort with about 10 school leaders and 50 teachers, and they made about 300 to 400 visits last fall. And we did another 4 trainings this summer, added another 80 educators. So it's really exciting that we have about 140 BVSD staff going out August, September, October, and when this month comes to an end, we'll have had more than 900 families visited. And this is across 34 of our schools. And just a couple, quick vignettes. Our fabulous custodian here, Amela, had her home visit from her teacher, and she raved about how her daughter felt seen and excited in a way to see her teacher in her home in a way that was just inspiring, particularly for her daughter. One of our pioneer teachers shared at a FET meeting, a Family Educator Together meeting, earlier this month. She happened to make a home visit the day a family was planning to leave BVSD due to some misunderstandings the next day. And by talking it out and connecting, family stayed at Pioneer. A final one from Crestview, a new family to town. The home visit not only made them feel more connected to the Crestview community, a couple months later, that conversation led to one of the parents getting a new job closer to home. So the relational fruits as well as other benefits has really been powerful, and I wish you could hear from our educators because it's also really deepened their understandings, especially in the area of being more culturally responsive. That's been a big part of our 3-hour trainings we do with everyone who participates in the cohort. Another project that I think we're really proud of and grateful to the superintendent for his leadership is the Latino Parent Advisory Council, which was part of the 100-day plan last fall and was really built on this idea that we need to stop guessing what families want and really listening and giving them the forum and to really challenge us and push on us. And I think that was one of the most rewarding parts last fall at a meeting. Parents started to ask for different pieces of data. And that really has pushed us to look at some of those gaps more closely. And so it involves parent leaders from across our district. Parents are sharing on topics that matter to them and really partnering with us, especially around the topic of how do we close the achievement gap and provide greater access and greater opportunities. And I wanted to really give you an opportunity to hear directly from two of our really remarkable parents, Demetrio Carrasco and Noemi Lastiri, who have been a part of what we call CAPL, part of FET, part of Parity, so they're really great parent leaders, and I just want to invite them up to share some comments with you about the impact of CAPL and FET.
Bueno, buenas noches, mi nombre es Demetrio Carrasco. Quizás no me conocen todavía, pero acostúmbrense a mí porque voy a venir muchas veces.
Necesito permiso para que yo pueda ir.
Sí, bueno.
So, good night. ¿Tu nombre otra vez?
Demetrio Carrasco.
Demetrio Carrasco?
Sí.
Carrasco. Can you hear me here? What about now? There you go. So, good night. My name is Demetrio Carrasco.
Ya, bueno, solo quería, vine a comentarles mis experiencias como padre, ¿verdad?
I want to share my experiences as a father.
Yo como se lo comenté a la primera junta que fui, yo nunca fui a la escuela.
As I stated on the first meeting that I attended, I never went to school.
Entonces para mí, o quizás para la mayoría de nosotros, siempre vimos a los profesores y maestros y todo como prepotentes.
So, to my perspective, or the majority of us, we might see teachers as overpowering.
Entonces, para mí fue una experiencia muy maravillosa ver que nuestra voz se puede ser escuchada en un lugar como CAPO.
So, to me, it was a very good experience to realize that my voice could actually be heard in situations like CAPO.
Y también vi que muchos padres se sentían igual que yo, de que se sentían como motivados a ir a la escuela, ser participantes de la escuela, que sus hijos lo vean que están pues con ellos ahí, siendo parte de la educación.
And I also realized that just like me, other parents were feeling encouraged to participate in school activities with their children and also to be at the school with their children.
Y sorry, it's my first time, es mi primera vez haciendo esto, entonces es difícil para mí.
First time doing this, so it's a little hard for me.
Ya,
¿De qué está hablando? Que estaban motivados a la escuela.
Sí, la verdad, nos gusta mucho como el consejo asesor, cómo se está manejando hasta ahora, y gracias a Ari, pues mi perspectiva hacia la escuela ha cambiado mucho.
So we do like how the board is conducting this time, and thanks to Ari, my perspective has changed a lot.
Porque como yo vengo, mi familia ha sufrido muchas malas experiencias, sea porque somos minorías o latinos o quizás porque no tenemos mucha educación.
So the way that I see it, my family has suffered already a lot, maybe because we are minority or maybe because we are Latino.
Pero gracias a ellos, o grupos como estos, de que siento de que nosotros como padres tenemos una voz en esta área y podemos sentirnos a gusto. Hasta ahora que vengo aquí enfrente de ustedes me siento bien, que puedo hablar.
So thanks to these groups where we have been able to express ourselves and be heard, this is now that I'm comfortable even to be here talking to you.
Y pues sí, la experiencia ha sido muy maravillosa, aunque pues también quiero decir de que a veces es desesperante, ¿verdad? Siento de que hablamos, pero no se ve la meta final y yo sé que es un camino largo.
So the experience has been really good, but at the same time, it has been frustrating. And we do talk and we do speak, but we do see very little done.
Entonces, pues sí, le agradecemos y yo sé que quizás ellos también se desesperan como Ari, que tiene que hablar con las familias, tiene que hablar con todos. Y yo entiendo de que también para él debe ser desesperante y le doy las gracias y también decirle de que no desmaye, de que siga allí, que siga adelante y lo apoyamos.
So we are thankful for this, and I also understand that Ari might feel frustrated with us, and I want to tell him thank you for your effort. Do not let the guard down.
Ya, pues yo creo que es todo lo que tenía que decir y también, pues agradecerles por tenerme aquí. No puedo agradecer lo suficiente por dejarme ser parte de aquí de ustedes y decirles de que vamos a venir con más fuerza y cada vez seremos más.
So I think that that's all I wanted to say, and I want to say thank you for allowing me to be here, and we will become more, and we will be more stronger.
Muchas gracias, que tengan buenas noches.
Thank you. Good night.
Aquí, ¿verdad? Okay, thank you for letting us have this time. I'd rather to write down a little say so that I don't take that long. I'm a mother of 3 daughters in BBSD, concerned about the education and the legacy that I can leave to my girls. What I have found out with the time is that it will be a higher effort to all of us just because what it represents to be a Latino in this country. I've been participating in FED, which is the Family and Educators Together, since about 3 years ago in my neighborhood school, which is Crestview, which has had, well, right now it has the 3rd place in number of Latino students. FED gave me the opportunity to be heard also, and I was able to express my worries and expectations in the education, not only for my girls, but for the Latino students. Last school year, it was created the committee, the Latino Parent Advisory Council, where I was invited to, and all the parents from different schools were invited to participate and express the common interest that we look to help our students and as Latino children. Here are some of the topics that more concern in these years and in these days. As we know, some of them have increased due to political climate, but also some others have been due to unaware structure that we believe and trust will change with the participation of every one of us. We want to keep working to make a difference in our community. A bullying policy which is a standard to all the BBSCD schools. Increase the make improvements in the early detection and support to the gifted and talented Latino students. Extend more Spanish literacy programs to promote the benefits of bilingualism and reach its highest level of recognition, which is the seal of bilingualism at the high school level. Keep on requesting to BBSD the urgency to increase the diversity of races in the teaching members and administrative staff. Perform results of the proposals, SMART goals, its goal, with measurable results. I feel engaged to support these proposals, and I feel that we can make a difference in our district. We know it won't be that easy, and it won't be tomorrow, the soon tomorrow, but it will change. I'm trusting on that, and I will be standing by that. Thank you.
So as you can see from really our dynamic, dedicated parents, and I think our aim is to continue cultivating spaces where their leadership can come forward and they're able to partner with us because, as you can see, they care deeply about their children and the future of BVSD. Wanted to share with you a few other pieces beyond CAPL and home visits. We're really proud to share that in this collection of 2019 best practices around family partnerships, BVSD has 7 practices represented in there, which is the most in the state. And just going to share about a handful of them. There's 5 in total. Let me get, all right. There we go. All right, and no alarms are going to go off now either. Want to share with you first about Family and Educator Together, because that's been really the core of our work, and that's creating, it's based out of the research of Johns Hopkins of, if we're going to transform family partnerships, we need to give families a greater voice. So it's bringing together, for those of you who don't know the background, 5 or more parents, typically from underrepresented communities in our schools, and then 5 or more educators, including the school leader. And their aim is to explore how do we improve as a school around those 4 pillars I shared earlier. So a lot of our teams last year focused on communication and came up with collaboratively a number of dynamic approaches to building stronger bridges between family and home and changing systems within the school. So if emails are going out to families, and many families actually would prefer a text message, that's starting to shift, so families are getting the communication in the way they want, in the language they want. We currently, we added a team at Manhattan this summer. We've grown to 10 teams in total, and the teams are really doing dynamic work, and it's really founded in how do we deepen relationships and trust. And in the meetings, are our educators learning as much or more from our families as the reverse, because I think that's been one of the most powerful parts of it. And just to give you a couple really brief examples, Whittier last year, one of their projects was piloting different ways of communicating at different grade levels. So a back and forth journal with families, text messages, positive calls, different ways, and then deciding as a staff what is the most effective way we want to move forward as a whole staff. Boulder High, a dynamic meeting last winter where a couple parents said, if you want us to come to conferences next week, we need help with transportation. Principal James Hill was sitting there, he said, okay, let's try it, let's get a bus. And the next week there was a bus. And this year probably there'll be more families taking advantage of that opportunity. And then Uni Hill, one of the parents who's now one of the leaders of the team, she shared her artistic background and created a Dia de los Muertos altar, which then led to staff and families asking her to lead an after-school class, which then led to her becoming the leader of the team. So opportunities like that happen organically that are really strengthening our school communities. The Bridging the Digital Divide project is another really exciting one where it began 2 years ago, and the aim was threefold. It was to give Spanish-speaking families access to technology skills to navigate the intensity of Infinite Campus and everything else we expect of them to navigate on our website and elsewhere, and also equip them with a device so they actually leave when they graduate with a new Chromebook. And we also are supporting them with connectivity at home. And fortunately, that was a BVSD project about a year ago. Then a United Way grant has led that to become a position out of Sister Carmen that's coordinating these classes. And Google gave $100,000 this past summer. So that's really growing, and we had 10 classes and 149 participants last year. And this year, it's going to be 13 classes and more than 220 participants. So it's a dynamic project that hopefully will help us bridge another gap that's really been painful and an obstacle for a lot of our families, is Infinite Campus and other barriers as we kind of have taken paper away as an opportunity. And then Parity, you've heard a little about last night, again, was just a powerful reminder of when we equip families with the tools and knowledge about how our system works, they can help us in tearing down some of the barriers. So that's been really, I think, powerful, and we now have, 100+ parents who've been a part of that, and combined with El Paso, we have hundreds of parents ready to help our educators and school leaders transform our schools. And then the last two, just briefly, last spring kind of came to our attention, family partnerships, that we have so many, as you know, so many fabulous allies throughout Boulder County supporting particularly our Latinx families. And often they might not know of each other, or they may not be helping kind of each other recruit families for the next endeavor. So we just, in this room, in fact, in its old version, we brought together about 15 organizations, nonprofits, so they could learn more about the work they're doing, create some synergy, and also not compete with each other and schedule events on the same night. And the other great outcome was they created a calendar for Boulder County so families can go on and find out any events that they can kind of link into throughout any given month. And finally, the Community Roundtables event was a powerful event last fall where we invite about 100 counselors, community liaisons, and other educators out to Ascent Church in Louisville, where we have about 30 organizations throughout Boulder County, and it's 2-3 minutes of kind of elevator speeches where our educators are getting to learn more about all the allies that are out there so that we can partner with them and bring them more into our schools. So those were kind of the big five, and a few final ones I just wanted to briefly highlight. We took about 50 parents up to Calwood last September. Dr. Anderson, others joined us for a dynamic day of learning, empowerment, leadership skills. And for instance, out of that, we had about 27 parents from Pioneer attend. Their FET team went from 4 parents to 11 within 2 weeks of that retreat. So really cultivating leadership. We've also been doing a lot of professional development, everything from our principals to new educator orientation to working with our office professionals or sharing family partnership best practices at our PTO summit or with our 360 leaders. Last few pieces, we've really deepened a partnership with the new CU Renee Crown Institute that's doing some great partnership with our district around family partnerships, and I think they're going to be an ally for some time to come. The Latino Parent Summit, which is coming up on October 26th, has been a really great collaboration between Dream Big, I Have a Dream, El Paso, BVSD to really provide a powerful day to launch parents more deeply into learning and into their leadership so they can continue to push for change within our system. We're also sharing out a best practice a week for all BVSD educators in the insights that goes out each Friday. And I think that's powerful because we'll share something like, how do you transform parent conferences so it's not what I remember doing myself as a teacher or watching as a principal, where we talk for 18, 19 minutes and then say, do you have any questions? That we're really shifting that dynamic to, again, elevate parent voice and make it more reciprocal. And then the last final piece I wanted to share tonight is around positive communication systems. I experienced at many schools as an assistant principal and principal that making positive phone calls was the one guaranteed thing I could do to help our families feel greater connection to our school, pride about their child's progress. And so, I mean, you really look at it, if a principal or teacher's making 5 calls a week, so maybe 15 minutes of time on a Friday, by the end of the year, that's 190 or so families that have been surprised at work or surprised at home by a really uplifting call. They get to hear their child get on the phone after the principal shares the news, and then they're beaming, heading back to class where the other kids are motivated to see them come back from their positive call, and the teacher who's written that positive call is, of course, seeing the rewards of it. So it's been exciting to see, after sharing that with our elementary principals last fall. Some schools are doing postcards and sending them home. Other schools, principals are emailing while they're observing students in action in the classroom, and others are, of course, making the positive calls. And I really think that embodies really what we're trying to do in terms of, we know how scarce time is for all of us within the system. How can we select high leverage practices that are both deeply meaningful and also have a really strong impact on relationships and trust? So appreciate the chance to share with you some of the highlights of our work in family partnerships that will continue to grow and expand, and welcome any questions.
Thank you so much, and also just a special thank you to the 2 parents who came and helped us understand what your job is. Le agradezco mucho y espero que podemos tener la oportunidad de escuchar de ustedes y escuchar su voz en otro tiempo. Gracias. And another thing I'll just point out I'll start with a comment about this presentation. I've heard a lot about family partnerships, and for the last 6 years that I've been on the board, And I would say tonight, I think I really understand what it means and what it looks like. And I'm just personally just in awe of all the work that has happened in this area. And thank you and all the people who've been working on this with you to bringing this to life and making what it appears to me, with my perception, that it's been incredibly effective and something that should be a point of pride. So thank you so much. Board members, questions?
Quiero decir lo mismo de Tina. Muchas gracias a los parientes de estar aquí. Agradezco su coraje y su amor de su familia de nuestras escuelas y ojalá que regresen pronto. And Ari, I agree with what Tina said. I think this is great work. I like the idea of reciprocal communication as opposed to the one-way communication. I think that's really important, and it's just been really encouraging to see your work and to see we still have a long way to go, but we've come a long way, so I really appreciate it, so thank you.
Thank you.
Sam?
Just add my thanks, Ari, and to the parents who spoke as well. And I agree with Tina that this is the level of giving us some detail and some specific examples about what's going on day to day in schools is really helpful and encouraging. What more do you need? I mean, I know it all comes back to resources and capacity, but if you were going to prioritize something that would really help you take it to the next level, what would that be?
I mean, I think from home visits to family and educators together, I think it's wanting to expand the opportunities so that we don't have 3 or 4 champions on a staff who are doing that beautiful work with parents on their own, that really the capacity, whether it's opportunities for their professional learning. But right now, it feels great in terms of the way it's evolving, whether it's home visits or FET, that we're really beginning with our educators that are deeply passionate about the work, and then with something like home visits, that enthusiasm is spreading and people are asking and are doing it voluntarily. So hopefully it will just continue to multiply over time. So really just grateful for the support, and yeah, I think it's moving at a healthy pace. Thanks.
Thank you for the presentation. It helps me understand more, but brings me back to days when I did home visits as a teacher, and it opened my eyes and made a lot of sense to I felt I had more connectivity to the parents as well as the students, showing me the room and have more of a bond. But I also liked your idea of positive communication, because usually when I would call, they'd say, what'd they do wrong now?
Yeah.
You know, and it's nice to feel like what they do right. So that was a good example of the calls that you make.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And the positive calls and home visits are just such a consistent, beautiful win-win for everyone. And to see, you know, one of our principals after his first few visits said that his first day of home visits was one of the best days in his 20-year career. So to see the meaning also for our educators is inspiring.
Shelley or Richard? Richard?
Muchísimas gracias por la presentación que acaban de dar. Yo me alegro mucho de lo que hemos cumplido y sé que tenemos mucho trabajo que hacer. Thanks, Ari, for your presentation. It's great to see how much advancement we have made in this area. And I've been doing this work for 40-plus years in terms of family engagement, and it really feels good to see that some of the things that you're implementing here in Boulder Valley School District are things that we championed through the Statewide Parent Coalition with a number of school districts. And the home visits, I think, is something that really will pay a lot of dividends in terms of connecting our families more with our schools. I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit more in depth in terms of some of these things that you have outlined here at some other point in time. I think and I'm also looking forward to seeing what your budget's going to look like, by the way. So when I hear a question being asked by one of our board members, what is it that we could provide you more support with? I wouldn't be shy. I'd be asking. Okay?
He's not shy.
No, he's not. You don't have to ask now, but I'm sure looking forward to seeing what your Family Engagement Partnership budget is going to look like. So muchas gracias a todos ustedes para apoyar a Ari con el trabajo que están haciendo. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and then just one parting thought. There are times when we have presentations that I think other governing bodies might appreciate in our communities. So, my other favorite presentation is, of course, demography, that I always think that our city councils like. But this would be one where a lot of times you'll hear city council people saying how they want to increase engagement and authentic engagement with different parts, particularly underrepresented communities. And I would hope that we could volunteer this presentation to those people so that they could get some ideas what a successful engagement and authentic engagement might look like.
That sounds great. Yeah, and I think part of what we continue to learn is the shift that happens when we go outside of our own comfort zones. And I think from home visits to other projects, actually going out into the community and making ourselves feel the vulnerability that a lot of our families feel coming into our schools is a great pathway to strengthening the ties we have with our families.
All right. Thanks again. Okay, so our next item is 6.2, school improvement at Alicia Sanchez and Columbine.
Okay, good evening again, President Marquez, members of the board, Dr. Anderson. We are so pleased to stand before you this evening to provide you with an update of the very exciting, very promising, and very dramatic school improvement efforts underway currently at both Alicia Sanchez and Columbine Elementary Schools. So, why this work and why now? This graphic visualizes the ELA and math CMAS data for all schools, elementary, middle, and K-8 in BVSD. As you can see, the Alicia Sanchez and Columbine data reflects both low achievement and below average growth, and therefore the need for the most significant school improvement work in the district.
So it was apparent to us that if we were going to change this pattern and really get that dramatic school improvement at Alicia Sanchez and at Columbine, we were going to need to do some things differently as a district, which for us meant really engaging with a partner who could support us in that journey. The University of Virginia Partners for Leadership in Education is a nationally recognized partner in school improvement work. And as you can see by their data, have had great success in helping individual schools and districts improve achievement for students. The core partnership model is really built on working together with both district and school leaders to establish the systems and structures that will create the conditions for student success. There are various phases of that process that span over 2 years for the primary cohort, and we're right here in the process. So just about halfway through year 1, and this is the activate stage where the schools are really starting to get to work and implement some of the systems that they've been working to develop.
So district conditions create school conditions, and school conditions create the learning conditions for students. And that has been the most important piece of our understanding, that we now know that what we do at the Ed Center either supports or doesn't support what it actually takes at the school level to achieve school improvement. And we know that we have to get the district conditions right in order to create sustainable school conditions and therefore learning conditions to improve outcomes for our kids at our schools. And so learning how to do this effectively has been the focus of our development as the district team. So each one of these levers
points to the need for the development of underlying systems and structures at both the district level and the school level. These key areas are what we have been focusing on in our learning as district leaders. It's how we have focused on our support and both our coaching of building leaders and how our networks are supporting the schools, staffs, and communities at both Alicia, Sanchez, and Columbine. And now I would like to introduce Dr. Bianca Gallegos, who is the principal at Columbine, to share with you the work that's underway at her school.
Buenas noches. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having us here. I also have here with me Mr. Andrew Mulvaney. He's an awesome teacher at Columbine. And I'm going to have him talk about our first strategy, and then I'll talk about strategy 2 and 3.
So our first strategy is that as an entire staff, our Columbine team created and follows the Columbine shared norms. And we did, in creating our shared norms, we did this at the start of the school year, setting the foundation to guide our thinking throughout the school year. It was a thorough collaborative process where everybody's voice was included, and we brainstormed the most important norms that would guide our thinking throughout the year. So we first reflected individually to think about the norms that we felt were important, and then we broke out into small groups. In those small groups, we identified 3 norms that we would share out as a whole group. In our whole group, we saw a lot of similarities, and we identified the most important norms that would guide our thinking for this school year. 2 ways that they have been most beneficial, and there's many ways, but 2 of the most important ways are in our grade level meetings and in our staff meetings. So we're looking forward to continue implementing the shared norms, and they have been a big help so far.
Thank you, Mr. Mulvaney. The second strategy that we are implementing at Columbine is the instructional committee will be training the Columbine staff on how to use the Columbine Monthly Biliteracy Planner for determining grade level instruction and learning. We have, as many other schools have, of course, is we have the committees, and each committee has a set of experts in a variety of things in their field. And so our instructional committee is represented by preschool through 5th grade. And so what they did was they looked at a first draft and refined what would it look like for us to, a month at a time, plan for literacy in Spanish and English. And so they're looking at content objectives, language objectives, and making sure that we're covering a balance of standards in our monthly planning, for example. Strategy 3 is the MTSS committee will refine the Columbine shared structure for analyzing student data. Then the staff will be trained on how to use the structure. And so this is really important for us because it will give us a shared way of looking at how do we get our students to the next step? What are the things that we need to do? What are the strategies that we need to implement so that we can make sure that our students, so that we're changing the conditions for our students so that they can reach the next milestone and get to grade level and above. And I'm going to introduce Joel Rivera. He's the principal at Alicia Sanchez.
Good evening, everyone. I'm told I don't have to lean over because you can hear me a little tall. So as Bianca said, I'm the principal of Sanchez, and it's great to be here and great to see you guys for the first time, at least since I've been in Boulder Valley. I want to talk about our work with the 90-day plan moving out of University of UVA work, with the PLE work that we've done. Coming into the UVA in the summer, I relied heavily on the school readiness assessment, which was one of the initial actions that was done with our district network leads, Robin and Nativity, with some other members of the team. And just looking at student focus group, parent focus group, and community focus group, teacher focus group, came out with these 3 strategies. And so something that we believe in, our teachers believe in, been plowing away for 8 weeks. I can't believe it's only been 8 weeks with how much we've actually implemented. It's been amazing to have this opportunity for me, and I think it's really paying off with our students as well. And so to talk about the first strategy is Jess Rothman. She's an interventionist at our school and a former kindergarten teacher. She's been at Sanchez for many years. So she's going to discuss the first strategy that we implemented this year.
Yeah, when Joel says we've done a lot, we really have. So I'm only going to highlight a few of the ways that we've been really working on that first strategy, which is related to classroom instruction. And one is that we created a school-wide template for lesson design, which includes important practices, which includes a strong standards-based objective for the lesson, making sure that we're introducing relevance to the students, an assessment piece, and then supports for all of our learners, so differentiation. We've also implemented a number of curriculums, including the ones that have been implemented across Boulder Valley recently, but we've also implemented Up the Ladder for writing at 3rd through 5th grade to support those students. And then importantly, we've redone our schedule for this year. So I'm an interventionist. We have, each grade level has an interventionist which does literacy as well as English language acquisition. So each grade level has an English language acquisition teacher which works with the whole team, which is important in terms of collaboration and those structures. But also the schedule has a staggered literacy block. So as interventionists, we're able to flood during that block. And there are grade levels where every student is in a reading group every day. Or there's 4 interventionists working with that one grade level every day during that sacred time. And we also really created longer blocks and sacred blocks for that important instruction in literacy, writing, and math.
Thanks, Jess. The second strategy that you can see up there, data-informed collaboration with a commitment to relational trust. So one of the things we developed in our schedule is weekly times, actually 2 days a week. And if you know anything about teacher time, it's precious and it is sacred. And so the fact that we were able to build that into the schedule, so we have groups of teachers, grade level teachers, interventionists, along with myself, the assistant principal, Becky, who's also in the audience here with us, to go in there, review where our students, how our students are performing, and then actually put in plans and set plans in motion that happen the next day to actually be able to do that and work that in our schedule has been incredible. So every Monday and Tuesday, we have 50 minutes that are just stashed away for looking at how kids are performing and making decisions based off of that. Do we need more intervention? Do we need to strengthen content for students that are performing somewhere in the middle? Do we need to extend content for kids that are at or above grade levels? So to do that weekly, and we do that over the course of 4 weeks, we do literacy, writing, math, and then behavioral, looking at data that we have or data sheets or data cycles that we have created on our own. Also using protocol that we can go in there and sit so everybody has a voice, everybody has a say, and it's really productive, and that's been an amazing experience for us. And along with that, creating universal data tools for all grade levels to use. So making the work easy. We want teachers to be able to go in, see how their kids are performing, and then we make decisions based off of that right away in the time that's allotted. So 2 50-minute sessions doesn't sound like a lot. It is a lot, but we also want to make it as efficient and effective as possible. The last rock that you see up there, school-wide systems are clear, consistent, and support students and teachers in creating a positive learning environment. This has probably been the biggest one that we've hit from the get-go. So right away, we saw the need for us to be consistent along our system so we can create that positive environment from our students. So back in the spring, our staff decided to implement responsive classroom, which again, it's a classroom management practice that we can implement consistently across all grade levels. It's been amazing, and if you walk into our classroom at any parts of the day, I can tell you exactly what they're going to be doing with responsive classroom because it's that structured and it's that consistent across all classrooms. Again, been incredible to see, and also just the buy-in that we have with staff that was a part of that process in selecting it. Implementation of second step social emotional learning curriculum is something that's been in place at our school for years. It's typically been delivered by a counselor, but now all of our teachers have been trained in second step. So our teachers deliver the lessons, and our counselor now does follow-up to those lessons with daily activities that are included in second step. It's just been, again, another awesome implementation for us as well, and everybody involved, same language, consistent across all classrooms. We recently received a bully prevention grant, and second step, which is our social emotional curriculum, has a great add-on. So we are now implementing that across the classrooms as well. All teachers have been trained in that. We revamped our positive behavior and intervention supports. Our PBIS is something that's probably been around all of our schools for 5-10 years. Every so often, as when leadership changes, you start focusing on other things, that starts to slowly walk away from you. And so we revamped that. What are the expectations across the school? How can we promote positive behaviors? How can we show our expectations and reinforce those through our daily actions? So we revamped that school-wide as well. The last thing, which I see is just probably one of the biggest supports that we've had from the district level, and a thing that I haven't experienced at other schools, is our social emotional learning team. So that not only at our elementary school, not only includes me and our assistant principal, but we have a full-time BCBA, a board-certified behavior analyst. We have a full-time behavioral interventionist. We have a full-time counselor. We have a full-time school psych. The great thing from an administrative perspective on that is, the social emotional challenges that we have at our school, based off of factors that we don't need to get into tonight, we are able to address those immediately, and with a very quick response of what's going on in the room, allows Becky and I to be in the classrooms, to be instructional leaders in the building. And so that SEL team has just been really important for us right now. So, and it all falls under that last strategy of creating a positive environment for our kids and for our teachers. So I appreciate being able to say that, and I'll pass it off to Sam. Okay.
Thank you both. So I think you can see that our principals have taken on a lot, and the teachers are there with them, engaging in this work and really co-creating some of the systems and structures that they're building at their school. We still have a lot of work to do. So this list are the immediate next steps throughout the rest of this year, which will include some more professional learning for district staff, our school leaders, as well as ongoing and support at the school level, a spring site visit from the fabulous team at the University of Virginia, and another summer institute in June. Some of the things that we're learning as we've been engaged in this partnership is that being engaged with a partner that's truly aligned to your strategic priorities around school improvement is incredibly valuable. It's been a valuable learning experience for us in developing deeper expertise in things like change management, effective systems and structures, instructional and leadership coaching, to be able to interact not only with the experts in the UVA PLE, but also with other district leaders throughout the country who are doing this work in different contexts has been really powerful. We're very hopeful that the work that we've been doing at Columbine and at Alicia Sanchez is work that can be transferable to other schools in our district, and that some of the systems and structures that we're building are things that we can incorporate into our model for differentiated support and accountability as we develop that through the strategic plan. And we stand ready for your questions.
All right, thank you so much, and all the detail. It's exhausting just to hear about the work you're doing. Board members, any comments or questions? Donna?
Thank you for the presentation and all the hard work that all of you are doing. But I have a question coming from my own background, and sometimes SPED leads the way on things, but the progress monitoring was always so important, because I could tell if the intervention was working. Knowing that these interventions weren't in place in previous years, that's one answer to my question. I realize we've put in a lot of interventions that we didn't previously have, but is the progress monitoring data? I think Joel say that about every 4 weeks you were doing data sheets or something like that. So 8 weeks in, are we showing a lot of growth so that, the slide number 3 that we have, we don't see that next year? What is the data currently showing that on the progress monitoring of these students?
Yeah, I can speak to that. Yeah. I'll just give an example for example, writing, which Becky's done a lot of work with using Up the Ladder. If you talk to any one of our teachers 3rd through 5th grade, they're going to say, I have seen more writing this year, and after actually the first cycle we went through, than they had a lot in previous years, just to focus on that. So to look at that, it's a little bit more time intensive to talk about it and show, but if you look at our initial the data that we collected and then compare it to that first cycle coming through, you know, you do see growth right away. And then the growth, and this is the purpose of it, the growth we don't see, we're able to say, why was there not growth? What was going on with the intervention here? And then how do we implement, again, how do we get, you know, what did we not do the first time that we can do now? And so it continues to bring the kids that struggle to the top, and it gives us an avenue to have that discussion and put plans in place and then monitor again coming through where it wasn't happening before for all kids. And so, and that's just one example. And then it happens across all four content areas that we're looking at.
Thank you for all your hard work. I think it's pretty amazing, and I really appreciate the presentation. I just have a couple quick questions. I was curious if you could share what a shared norm would be, like 1 or 2 examples of a shared norm. I thought that was a really interesting way to bring your teachers together.
Yeah, absolutely. So one example of a shared norm is remaining student-centered at all times. And so as educators, it's there's a lot of different demands for our time, and remaining student-centered is the heart of why we become educators. And when things get hard and there's so many things to do and so many deadlines to hit and all of these things keep piling up, if we can't ask ourselves what is best for students and how is this decision that we're making, is this move that we're making student-centered or not, that's a perfect example of our norms, and that's something that is really helping us stay true to why we went into education in the first place.
I've heard a lot of information about how you're monitoring test data and progress monitoring and more test data. What I'm wondering is, how do you know if the other supports that you have, it sounds like it's the responsive classroom or second step, how do you know if those are working? How are we monitoring how the classroom environment is improving, and how, I'm not an educator, but what I hear is if you don't deal with the trauma and the emotional issues of the kids, it's really hard to learn math. So how are you monitoring that, and how are you figuring out if we're making progress there?
So for our behavior, we wanted to have a solid set of information that we could look at to make decisions on. And so we adopted SWIS. I can't tell you what it stands for, but it is a way that we monitor our behavior. And so whenever we put plans in place that include, we want to see an increase in positive behavior for the students, that is one of the main tools that we use. And if you've never seen SWIS, I mean, we had our SWIS data time this year or this past week. To be able to drill down, we can say, okay, what is happening? Where is it happening? What's the location? What time of day? What day? I mean, we can go to all. The drill down feature in that is incredible. And so, you know, we're able to look at, okay, this is happening in 4th grade on the playground, and then do a root cause analysis, which is something that we did heavily in Virginia this past summer, and to say why, drill down to that why, and then once we get that why, we have a problem that's defined, and then we have actions that we can take to hopefully increase the positive behaviors we want to see. And so we set the goal. We're going to come back to in 4 weeks. We have our action plan set. So similar to like our 90-day plan, we just did that on a smaller level with behaviors. And so usually, you know, that's kind of the biggest thing that we use is SWIS. We had it in the school a few years ago. We haven't had it in a few years, but coming back to it, I've used it in my previous school district and previous position, and we've seen great results just of identifying what is happening, when it's happening, how it's happening, making plans, and then reviewing that. And we always most likely will see improvements on that.
It sounds like this work is exhausting for the teachers. What kind of supports are we having for the teachers so they can stay energized? And
we're looking at yoga mats. No, I'm just kidding. So you know, so for one, it's a training. So obviously, Becky and I are involved in all these data meetings. And so we're in there hopefully providing support with how we can drill down together. When I'm in there, it's usually, that's a question I ask, like, what resources can we give you? How can we support you? What do you need from us? Similar like you did when Ari was up here and you said, what can we do? That's what we're doing. And it's all together. We're all on board with it. You know, so the training piece, the supports piece, the facilitation of these data meetings, At times, as we're slowly releasing it back to the teachers, is different ways that we provide that support for teachers, and there's the time to do it. So putting the time in the schedule to carve that out so we can have those conversations has been a huge bonus for us as well.
And then one last question, Dina. So we just heard this great presentation from Ari about family engagement and what we're doing. So can you talk a little about the family engagement that's going on at these two schools and how it's being received?
Columbine is lucky to have a families and educators together. We have a group of Latino parents who have been meeting on a monthly basis, and we call it the cafecitos with the F-E-T in it. It means to have coffee together. And our Latino parent involvement is really strong at Columbine. We use a variety of ways of communicating with families. We use the Remind app. We do text messages. We do positive phone calls. And we try to, exactly how Ari explained, have reciprocal communication instead of two-way communication. And the families have been really great with giving us their ideas and feedback, and they've been great partners.
I would also add that this is a pretty fun and exciting question to be able to answer specifically today, because in the East Network this morning we had our first series of S3M's Strategic School Support meetings. And the purpose of these meetings is to have everybody in the network support team meet with the principal of the school and understand truly the context of the school, understand what the needs are, and how it is that the newly formed reorganization and network support team can support those efforts. And so we met for about an hour and a half this morning with Joel, and one of the action items that we came out of the S3M with was his statement about his desire to have support from Ari and his team and other members of the network support team in taking that next step in family engagement, both to bring them into the school and help them understand and support and navigate and be able to be involved in school and support the learning of their students, but also how is it that we support families in the community in understanding this work. And so that's pretty exciting because we just talked about that in terms of the network structure today, and we're excited to move forward with that work.
Okay. Sam?
Thank you for everybody for their hard work. I really appreciate it. I know that there's been a lot of hard work at these schools over many years, the time I've been on the board and before that, to serve the students at these schools. And I'm very encouraged by what you've just presented, but I guess as a question for Robin and Sam, why do you believe this effort will have a higher level of success than perhaps past efforts have?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that the theory of action that the University of Virginia Partners for Leadership in Education really focuses on is that you have to build district conditions that really support the school. And those have to be around systems and structures that will be sustainable regardless of what happens with the individual leader in that school. Now, individual leaders are really important. We're fortunate to have two amazing leaders at these two schools right now. And part of the model is ensuring that you have talent development so that you're starting to grow the next leaders that might be moving into those positions and providing the systems and structures around them to ensure that they can be successful. I think what I find particularly compelling about this work is that there's great evidence that it has worked in other schools and in other districts with huge gains in student achievement and in student growth. And the work that Robin and I have been engaged in as district leaders, I think, has pushed our thinking in ways that have really helped us grow in our understanding of how to lead this work successfully at schools. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I would say, honestly, that what we have done to this point previously has really been focused on how does the school in question conform to the structures of the district conform to the current practices of the district without us as central office leaders creating the nimble, flexible, targeted supports, conditions, resources, and coaching that schools need in order to address the issues that are unique to their environments, unique to their school communities, unique to the instructional needs that are highlighted by their data. And so the huge learnings for us as district leaders is that what we have to do first is hold up a mirror to what we do as a district. And we have learned a lot about ways that we have in the past supported, but also ways in which we have probably created barriers without even knowing it to school support. And so by understanding that it starts with us, it starts with, as we were talking a little bit about before, district conditions, to be able to understand and deploy supports specific to the needs of each school. But then having, like I said, those district conditions, then to create the school conditions as outlined in the 3 strategies that each school is described, then create the specific learning conditions for the specific children in those specific schools. And that is what's different, and that's what's really exciting about it.
Okay. Richard?
Thank you for the presentation. I keep thinking way back when the former principal presented the UIP to the board and identified the root causes for the issues that Sanchez particularly is experiencing. And I'm looking at the early learnings, or not the early learnings, but some of the strategies. And I know that you mentioned social emotional learning and some of the other activities that are going on. But one of the root causes that was identified was trauma and behavioral issues. And I kept wondering what was meant by trauma. Was it trauma that kids were experiencing before coming to school, which in essence would cause the behavior issues? And then part of the UIP that I remember reading is that the teachers were not positioned well enough or trained to deal with the behavior issues and the trauma. Is that what's going on with that strategy number 3, when you talked about dealing with behavior issues? And are the families getting involved in assisting you as it relates to identifying trauma issues? Or how are we doing that? Because that's always been gnawing at me in terms of it's been identified as one of the root causes, and I'm just trying to figure out how you got to that root cause and if this is helping you deal with the root cause.
So I would say if you look at the responsive classroom, and again, with the time allotted to get into it deep, I don't know if we can do that here, but if you look at the responsive classroom practices, there's a significant amount of trauma-informed practices that are evident in that, and it is part of the research if you look at responsive classroom. So one of the things that I saw coming in here is we had teachers trained in responsive classroom, well-managed schools, positive discipline. There was a lot of things that came in, and we didn't have like a system-wide approach of what are we doing? Like, what are we going to do as a staff that we're going to hold consistent? What can I do as an observer and evaluator that I could say this is the standard for which we are going to address these type of issues? In this case, you're talking about trauma. As far as getting the parents, so responsive classroom is something that we did grade level, or sorry, school-wide. And again, we are delivering them with, we're all bought in as a staff. They went through that and chose that. And coming from the focuses of the focus groups with parents, community, staff, and students, it was again something identified that we needed in terms of a system. When you look at getting families involved, again, second step curriculum is an amazing social emotional learning curriculum. And again, in talking with Ari in the S3M meeting this morning, which was very helpful for me to look at the support that we have, it has a huge family component to it. So to send home with families home links that we have both in English and Spanish that allow for the teaching to continue at home with the social emotional component that we have. That's the connection we want to make. We have parents that are involved on our bully prevention grant. And so addressing that as like, how can we give information home to families so they know what we're doing, so they're using the same language that we are using, and we're speaking the same thing to the kids. So when problems do arise, again, it comes down to that consistent message. So both of those practices, I believe, like answer the question that you're coming to us with. But second step is going to be like that main place where we can connect with families. And again, like Robin said earlier, I was excited coming out of the S3M meeting this morning because the next step of our 90-day plan, especially under this third strategy, is going to include a huge family component of it. So I think we are reaching that in a different way than we have in the past, just by the sheer consistency of how we're delivering this one. I don't want to say strategy, but or program, but this one mindset that we're coming at through responsive classroom and second step.
Is the language an issue at Sanchez in terms of your emergent bilinguals, your English language learners, as it relates to academic achievement?
Is the language, I mean, I would probably say more the poverty piece that's also prevalent in just the area that we work in. I think that becomes more of an issue that we need to overcome. But language is definitely something that we need to address as a school-wide system. Again, talking today in that S3M meeting, we said, and I believe it's also part of the strategic plan 1B, which I'm really excited about, is what is an instructional delivery model that we can have as a school that will reach the students in our building. So going back to the, one of the levers of, I forgot how it was worded, but being responsive to the school's needs. So again, that is something that we talked about just a few hours ago in this S3M meeting that we're relevant. So when the teacher sits down to plan, going back to what Jess was talking about in our lesson plan template, what is the best research best practices ways that we can address our language learners in our building? It's something that is going to be included on our next 90-day plan as well after we get our systems and structures in place, which I feel like we have, and we're on a good roadmap to moving forward. And I am excited about moving forward with that in the spring semester as well.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what the result is going to be by the end of the year. I'd like to go back to that slide that you have with the why this work, why now, with the bubbles in there and all of that. And then you have Alicia, Sanchez, and Columbine. And apparently that section, and there's a bunch of bubbles there. I don't know what schools those are. It seems to me like there's a lot of schools that are probably in the same situation as Alicia, Sanchez, and Columbine.
So as you take on school turnaround work, and I cannot emphasize this enough to the board, this is incredibly difficult, right? I think that you've seen 4 incredible leaders speak to you today that have strategies, that have learned, that are growing, that are understanding how district conditions really allow schools to be successful. I think what Sam said was really pertinent to your comment, Richard, in the sense that the lessons that we're learning by the successes of our kids in our community will be the opportunity to scale so all of those bubbles are in that upper quadrant. Right? That's the goal. Now, if you take on an effort like this and you go too fast, it'll fail. If you try to take this on too much, it'll fail. If you notice, they have, each one of these schools could have 50 strategies with the work that's in front of them, and they have 3. And every 90 days, you take on 3 other strategies, because if you try to do too much and move too fast, it will fail. So what I'll share is that I'm very proud of the work that's happened in a short time in this school year. I think that I've seen just growth and development in our area superintendents, our principals, our rock stars. We're so excited about the work that they're doing. And you will see, and I'm confident in this, growth in both growth and achievement over time And then we will have a proof point. We will have other schools raising their hands wanting to jump on board. So I would say that we don't have a strategy today on how do you move all those bubbles all at once. I think you establish a proof point. You build capacity within your organization through our district leadership, through our teacher leaders that are here, through our principals. And as we continue to raise the bar, we will continue to roll out those strategies in a way that makes sense, that is aligned to effective change management strategy. You can't go too fast. I'm very excited how engaged you all are in this work, and I'm glad that we had this opportunity to hear this presentation. I'm really excited about where we are.
Thank you very much. I'm also very proud of you guys because it's been a long time coming. And again, I'm anxious to see what happens at the end of the year, and I'm sure that we'll see some results. But I also understand a little bit about those bubbles there, that maybe 4 or 5 students can create that bubble to be where it's at if you measure by test scores. Because it seems to me like you have your CMAS, LA Math achievement. And if you're measuring by that, 3 or 4 students can make that school go down to that one particular sector in that graph. So, and it seems to me like you're doing a good job in trying to identify, based on data points, how to help these particular kids achieve on the CMAS or the LA Math achievement. And having these periodic meetings that you have as it relates to where are the kids at, I think helps. But I'd like to see also what we're doing around the other significant learning that takes place in the school, not just so much the achievement.
Okay. I had a couple questions. One is, Principal Joel, can't remember the last name.
That's the pre-kinders, they call them. No,
Okay, great. So Principal Joel, so you listed off the members of your SEL response team, and I think you had a psych and a behavioral. And from a staffing perspective, this might be a Rob question. Is that staffing level sustainable at Sanchez, and is it sustainable for other schools? Because that seems like it has a lot more support going on, which I'm not disagreeing, but.
I don't know that it's sustainable for all schools.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know that all schools need that level of support. And so what we have in place, we do feel is sustainable, and we feel like it's what this school needs in this moment in time. I think that as schools evolve and things evolve, you always have to revisit those things. But without those supports, without those folks to help support the teachers and administrators, we wouldn't be able to be taking on the things we're taking on.
And then another question I have is, Alicia Sanchez is a school that's on the clock, as it were, from a CDE perspective, and we have certain requirements to our community in that situation. I think one of them is a community meeting, is that, and have we complied with that portion of we're all set there? Okay.
October 30th, you can come too.
Okay, all right. Send us an invite.
Yeah, we sent that out to our families a couple weeks ago.
Okay. And then my last comment is just a comment, which is, and this is a general comment, and it's my perspective. You were talking about finding a root cause to a problem or finding a way to support a school. And the board could be part of the problem if our policy is a barrier to what you need to do. So I'm hoping, I think we have a great relationship with each other and our superintendent. So if you find a policy that is a barrier to what the goals are of the school, I'm hoping that people feel open about letting us know so that we at least are aware of the effects of our policies on the success of our students. It's really important, and we rely on all of you to let us know. So, any other No, not at all. No, but I think we're part of the solution. I mean, our policy is perfect, Sam. Okay, so with no other questions, I think we can move on to our next item, which is an update to CARE and Tabor, sorry, Kerr. Can't even get the agenda right. Tabor litigation. And I think, is this going to be Kathy with Rob, or? It's just Kathy, all right. And you might want to remind us what this is, since I couldn't even pronounce it.
The Kerr litigation started in 2011, and it is litigation that challenges the constitutionality of the Tabor Amendment. And we got brought in as plaintiffs in 2017 or so, I want to say, because I was on the board. And I'll spare you all the procedural issues, but the case went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and we've been trying to figure out who has the right to sue and who has the injuries that would allow you to sue. It's a standing issue. And because of a ruling at the Supreme Court, it became pretty clear to me and to some other attorneys that you needed to have whole bodies, like whole school boards or whole county commissioners or others be the plaintiffs in the suit. So Boulder joined, Denver joined, Cheyenne Wells joined, I think Pooter joined. So a whole bunch of different governmental entities joined. We've never been able to get the whole legislature to join, which would, I think, solve the standing issue once and for all if the whole legislature would join, but I don't think that's going to happen. So I went to the meeting that was the annual update on behalf of BVSD with the attorneys, and where we are is we're still at the starting line. We're still trying to figure out if we have the right standing to be able to bring the suit. We finally got a ruling out of a 3-judge panel. It's all in the federal court that said that we do have standing, and I think people thought that maybe with our new Attorney General there wouldn't be a request to have the whole 10th Circuit look at that issue, but he did file that motion asking the whole 10th Circuit to look at it. So we're waiting for the results from that. Then the split in the road will be if we win that, then we actually get to go to trial potentially and actually finally get to talk about the merits some 8 years later. If we lose that, or if the state loses that, the question will be at that point, do they try to go up to the Supreme Court again, which would delay us at a minimum because the docket's already set for another 2 years. So more, stay tuned. But it's a great legal team. It's primarily led by former Congressman David Skaggs and Herb Venster, who practices primarily out of Washington, D.C., but loves this issue and comes back to Colorado frequently to help with this litigation. So the Denton's law firm is the law firm that's put this together, and they have a great team. And so I just wanted to bring everyone up to speed as to where we were in that litigation, since we are plaintiffs. So I thought it was important just to let everybody know, because it could be important litigation. I don't know that it's going to get resolved anytime soon, given that it's taken this long and we're still not even sure if we can proceed. So does anybody have any questions about it? So I asked Tina to put it on just for information so that everybody would know kind of where we were. So thanks.
There we go. All right, it continues. Our next item is action items consent grouping. I'll read through them. 7.1 personnel items, 7.2 approval of minutes September 24th, 2019 regular meeting, 7.3 acceptance of donation Fairview High School, 7.4 correction to approval of donation Foothill Elementary, 7.5 grant food service teaching kitchen Gates Family Foundation 19. All right, board members, anyone want to pull an item? Okay, I'm actually going to pull 7.5, Grant Food Service Teaching Kitchen, Gates Family Foundation, 19. Do I have a motion to approve the remaining 4 items? Do I have a second? Okay, so motion by Kathy, second by Sam. All right, and Laura, do you want to call the vote, the roll? Oh, any discussion? I'm sorry, any questions about the other 4 items? Okay.
Benford. Fuqua.
Yes.
Garcia.
Yes.
Gebhardt.
Yes.
Marquis.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, so the next item is number 8, action items, and we have a resolution this evening, 8.1, Indigenous Peoples Day resolution, and this recognizes that the second Monday of October is the Indigenous Peoples Day in the Boulder Valley School District. Was that yesterday? No. Yeah. All right. Any questions or discussion? All right, do we have a motion to approve? Sam, you have a question? No. Or you approve? Okay, do I have a second? Kathy? All right, Laura, do you want to call the roll?
Benford. Fuqua.
Yes.
Garcia.
Yes.
Gebhardt.
Yes.
Marquis.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, so next we'll go to the item pulled from consent grouping, which is 7.5, Grant Food Service Teaching Kitchen Gates Family Foundation 19. And I just have a couple clarifying questions about how the funding is going to work on this. And the reason is that it states that there's a fiscal impact of $150,000. The total cost is $434,000. And I can't tell if the money's not going to come from the bond, and I can't tell if the district is matching the money, because one of the attachments says that matching district funds are involved, but I couldn't tell where they're coming from and whether we had budgeted for those dollars or whether we would find the money if the grant came through. So if I could just understand that this was not 100% clear, and I might be a little dense on this one.
So I've asked Arlie Huffman, Director of CTE, to come up and help us out in answering those questions.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to be here. So, right, as you see, the grant is put out there for the completion of the teaching kitchen itself. Reason we're doing that, just to give you a little background, we have right now across the district in our high schools, in 5 of our high schools, we have over 700 students enrolled in culinary arts programs, and they don't have that high level program to continue on to. And this provides a really unique opportunity for them. So that's the reasoning behind that. And as we go on through the build out of this particular program, we will be using, and I think you've seen that some of the CTE funds, Perkins funds, as an annual federal funding stream that we can be able to access to help us with the equipment and the continuation of building that program up. So that'll help us match that and fill that gap that you see from that 150 to the entire total that's there.
Okay, so it won't have any fiscal impact on the budget. You'll be getting grants across the board, but to different sources.
Our hope is to leverage the grants, absolutely, and we will be able to, over a couple year period, be able to use that to a pretty great extent. Don't have that particular number right in front of me right now, but that would help significantly.
Okay, thank you. Board members, any other questions? All right, then I'm going to do a motion to approve 7.5 grant food service teaching kitchen Gates Family Foundation 19. Do I have a second? Richard? Laura, do you want to call the roll?
Benford.
Yes.
Fuqua.
Yes.
Garcia.
Yes.
Gebhardt.
Yes.
Marquis.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, the next item is number 9, policy action. Yes? Can we try to get through this? 9.1, Board Policy Adoption, Policy IB, Academic Freedom. 9.2, Board Policy Adoption, Policy INB. Oh, wait, are we doing this consent? Yes, right? Policy INB, Teaching about Controversial Issues. 9.3, Board Policy Adoption, Policy KE, Complaints and Concerns. 9.4, Board Policy Adoption, Policy KEC, Complaints about Curriculum or Instruction. And then 9.5, Board Policy Retirement Policies. IIAC Regulation, IIAE, JFH, JFHR, KECE2, KECE3, KECE4, and KLBE. All right, do we have a motion to approve? By Sam, seconded by Richard, and now comments and discussion. Donna.
On the, which one is it? KECR, just page 2 of 4. Sorry about that. The way I read under C, and I know we discussed it and we made all the little changes last week, Kathleen, I appreciate all the work you've put in it, but a couple of things just, let's see, the next to last paragraph, some of the things like usually and there's one up above there that says generally, or the last paragraph, generally. Those, I know it says usually within 15 working days, and then the other one is generally not longer than. And as I did my little side calculations on how long from the first complaint till the resolution, looks like about 2.5 months, which all in all, that wouldn't be all of that long, but just throwing out there, I'm not going to revise it at this point, I don't think, unless anyone else has some thoughts on it, but that usually within 15 working days and generally not longer than 30 working days seems to give the district just this big amount of leeway, and the parents, it takes away their perception of when they can get something resolved.
Comments?
Just want to throw that out there.
Board members? Thank you for sharing that. And we talked a little bit last time about adding more flexibility on the parent side, because we had some flexibility on the district side, and there was an idea that maybe we would sometimes need some flexibility. And this is a regulation, so, which is good news in terms of changing it. So don't feel that we can't change it, because it's a little different. But we might want to think about over time if we wanted to sort of put a cap on the whole process, which might be instead of capping each stage with so much whatever, but to say something like a parent should get some sort of final resolution within 90 days, so that it's a not to exceed, rather than trying to referee each stage. I don't know if that would be an.
Yeah, I get it. It's just some of the paragraphs have a specificity to them, and others don't.
Sure, and if I can comment on that. I think when the board was studying this policy at our last meeting, the comment was made that there are going to be times where there needs to be some flexibility. For example, it may take a complainant a little while to get all their materials together, in which case they can have a discussion with the person receiving those materials and come to some agreement. The place where there is not flexibility is when a complainant wants to take it to the next level and to the next stage of review. This is very time-consuming work when there's a complaint that needs to be investigated and considered. It's certainly our expectation that it's thorough, but the intent of those firm deadlines was so we really can be clear about making sure that it keeps moving, and this is your time to seek review at the next level, which is pretty consistent when you look across policies and procedures that are talking about that seeking a multi-step review process. So that would be the difference. The usually and the generally language, and then sometimes it says unless otherwise agreed. I definitely hear what you're saying about that. I was trying not to overhaul every word of the policy, but I could be persuaded of the benefits of using the same language in each place if that felt like it would provide clarity.
I appreciate your explanation. I only came from it from years of writing IEPs and having to stay within, bam, 30-day, that's your deadline. Bam, 60-day, that's your deadline. So it was just, in reading it, I felt, whoa, this is a lot of flexibility. So, thanks.
Okay, what other questions or comments do people have? All right, would someone like to move to approve these items? By Richard, and do we have a second by anybody? Shelley. Laura, would you like to call the roll?
Benford.
Yes.
Fuqua.
Yes.
Garcia.
Yes.
Gebhardt.
Yes.
Marquis.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, and our last item is agenda setting. And we did hear a little bit, we're not following our agenda setting policy to a T, so we're going to be looking at that and seeing how we can improve that, both in terms of posting materials as well as the process. So that's something we've done multiple times, and Sam and Shelley, you've done it multiple times, had that discussion, and we'll have it again. So that's one thing that will be coming up without any kind of timeline yet. Anything else? Okay, great. The meeting's adjourned.